A couple weeks ago, this brand new Ibis Ripmo AF frame showed up at my door on the condition that I do a video all about the Ibis Blackbird Send wheels. Well, I've published that video, so at this point, it's time to build this bike up. In the past, you've seen a pre-production orange Ripmo AF on my channels. That probably rode quite a bit different from this production one, and I'm excited to get on a production one because it should be a big upgrade from what I was riding. Before we pop this open, I want to let you all know this video is made possible thanks to support from my friends over at Jensen USA. Jensen's a leading online retailer here in the United States of America for Ibis bikes, and they have Ripmo AFs almost always in stock. That's an awesome bike. I recommend most of my friends and family that want to get a good all-around mountain bike to get a Ripmo AF. So I have a link to the Ripmo AFs over at Jensen USA. That link's in the YouTube description down below. Once you're over at Jensen USA, anything you do purchase from my link, that'll help support my channel, and it'll let Jensen USA know that you enjoy watching these videos. So with that said, let's pop this box open and get the bike built up. Grab our weed knife, and we're gonna cut safely away from ourselves to see what's in here. Oh, sweet. It's upside down. I can't see a thing. Whoa, all one color. I have been riding a Ripmo Carbon V2S for the last 6 months or so, and I really like that bike. I've been riding it a ton more this spring. This looks kind of similar, but very different at the same time. I didn't just say anything in that sentence. Yeah, this is very green. I'm excited to try this shock out. I've not ridden a Bomber Air rear shock. Let's grab the thing, set this thing up, and do a bit of a build. If you're new here, the Ibis Ripmo AF is the anti-hero of a bike that everyone's asking about. It's a great bike, and it completely ignores common concerns like weight and carbon fiber, and instead hones in on value and performance. If you can really shred on the AF, you've gone from permitted smack talker to a full-on license to run that mouth and talk the talk. The Ripmo AF was an upgraded version of the original Ibis Ripmo Carbon V1. The AF got better geometry with a slacker head angle and better suspension with a slightly more progressive ratio. It was also less expensive by about $1,000, allowing the bike to become more common at Ibis dealers' sales floors than Coca-Cola is at your local taqueria. Ibis flexed pretty hard on the bike industry with the new Ripmo AF. At the time, it was legit ahead of most other bikes at that price. And right as the COVID boom hit, Ripmo AFs exploded onto the trails like a Phantom Raptor's crackling comet on the 4th of July. The 150mm travel mountain bike slots into both trail and enduro categories, with suspension and tires making the largest differences. The stock setup is a 160mm fork. The bike rolls on 29-inch wheels front and rear. For reference, I'm 5 foot 8 inches tall, 174 centimeters, and fit very comfortably on this size medium. Ibis is pretty on point with their size guides, and if you fall between sizes, generally I'd say go larger. While the Ripmo Carbon now sports similar geometry and suspension, the AF is popular for many good reasons. You get the undeniable coolness of a mid-sized brand combined with a ride quality and value that is even with, and often better than, the boring big box brands. For most, the Ripmo AF is the best second mountain bike purchased after they've reached the end of what they could do with that first starter bike. So my friends over at Industry 9 sent me some headsets to try out. I can't pronounce it. It's IRIX. It's like the Greek goddess of two wheels. So we're gonna see if this one, my last one, will fit in here. If it doesn't, we'll see if my other ones do. And I picked out purple because that's the color I had. IRIX. That means someone who shreds in grease. All right, go in there, headset. Go on. Goodbye. Okay, it's pretty tight. Here we go. So I'm gonna run a 35mm stem because on the Ripmo V2S, Industry 9 sent a sweet gold 35mm stem. And I tried it and found I quite liked that 35 length on the Ripmo. So we're gonna do the same stem length over here on the AF. Yeah, man, this thing is an interesting color spec between the purple, the red, the turquoise, and the green. Huge shout out to my friends over at Shimano. I'm a big fan of Shimano product, and they were kind enough to send me 2 group sets for this year. So thank you, Shimano, I appreciate it. I didn't buy this stuff, which is amazing. This is exactly the stuff I want to run. I'm in a very privileged position, and I appreciate it a ton. If I was buying bike parts, I would get either XT or even SLX for some bits. But the Shimano stuff, the price is great, the stuff's super reliable, and it's just simple, solid, and it works awesome. I got a ton of trust in all this XT stuff, so I'm stoked to have these resources here. So we're gonna run a 32 tooth chainring on this bike, mostly because the other bike has a 32-tooth chainring, and that feels pretty good. If you don't mind going Gucci, the better bike is definitely the Ripmo Carbon. Beyond the obvious difference in frame material, there are a few more differences between the siblings. The biggest difference, at least on paper, between these two is a bit of geometry called the trail measurement, and that determines a bike's overall stability. The Carbon Ripmo has a 9% larger trail measurement, which means it's a more stable bike. The Carbon Ripmo has all the confidence of a coked-up quarterback on spring break. As an all-around trail bike, the Ripmo AF will still be quite fun, especially on the less extreme trails closer to many population centers. The extra stability of that carbon bike will save your bacon on Squamish's rock rolls, but it'll also keep you more stuck to the ground, muting some excitement when you drop in on your regular lunchtime lap of Chicken Licks Hill. The Ripmo AF is a nice balance between capability and not being overbiked. But in reality, we're splitting hairs here. Both bikes do a good job of being well-rounded machines. One of my stronger arguments for the carbon version is that it is much easier to route the 3 cables. The tube-and-tube cable routing means no zip ties, and the game of hide-and-seek you'll need to play with the routing is more akin to falling off a log.
I have a park tool kit showing up in the mail like tomorrow for exactly this.
Ah! I scratched my bike! Ah. This is a very necessary design feature. Summon the patience. Oh, I slept. Hello, cable. Oh. The secret tool you need to put this bike together is the hook and the grab. You hook it, you penetrate the end, and you guide it out. And a lot of patience. I'm going to yoga tonight to calm down from this. It's worth mentioning that buying a complete bike from a place like Jensen USA, the bike comes fully assembled, and you'll only have to deal with replacing shift housing once it wears out way down the road. Could be a year, could be 3 years. I built my Ripmo AF up somewhat basic with my standard Shimano XT kit using 165mm crank arms, a 10-51 cassette, and dual piston XT brakes. My first setup was a bit rung what you brung and utilized a Marzocchi Z1 air fork. I ran my usual 760 bars, a 40mm stem, and I can fit a full 200mm drop seat post. For wheels, the first few rides were with the stock Ibis Blackbird Send units. These wheels are fine, though a bit heavy, and my specific pair arrived with a pretty low spoke tension. That's an easy fix, but it's worth noting, and I'll link to a full wheel review up in the YouTube corner. For more mellow terrain, the AF is sick. It's got a solid amount of travel, and it can be ridden very aggressively, but it still pedals better than any 160mm bike ever should. For my active wheels in the air riding style, I far prefer the Ripmo AF over the little 130mm travel Ripley AF. However, if you're a newer rider, the smaller Ripley AF will be easier to handle on mellow terrain. That said, I do all I can to avoid such terrain. After the first few rides, I installed my usual Industry 9 Enduro 315C carbon wheels. These use a WeAre1 Union rim on Industry 9's aluminum spokes and Hydra hubs. These are much stiffer than the Blackbird Send wheels, almost to the point that it feels like going from the Macarena to a square dance. I install this model of wheel to most every bike that I test, which really helps me isolate how a bike rides. You might be asking if I have any complaints about the bike. I have a couple of small gripes. I don't feel as confident on the AF as the Carbon. At 170 pounds, I'm heavy enough to feel the bike twisting under load. This is called flex. Now, the AF is not a flexy bike, but in my opinion, it's also not a super stiff bike. It's stiff enough that many never notice this. That said, once you do, it can leave you feeling a little shook. The AF is more stout than an Orbea Occam, for instance, but less stiff than a Yeti SB130 or SB140 or even a specialized Stumpjumper EVO. If you're landing successive mid-sized jumps and pumping really hard through turns, you can start to notice that winding up feeling. If the Ripmo AF is your only bike, you likely won't notice it, as the best place to hide something like that is right in plain sight. If you also ride a half dozen other high-end carbon bikes, this can take some getting used to, and it's also worth noting that going to a 170mm fork on the AF will make this feel more obvious. I prefer the AF with a stock length 160mm fork. For the final bit of filming, I made a change that pleasantly surprised me, that Marzocchi Z1 coil fork. At 170 pounds, I was able to get plenty of support for my weight and riding level with that stock damper, and generally ride with the grip damper at about a 50% position. What was really cool is that coil fork seemed to bring a slow fade to the flex. The small extra bit of compliance felt like it helped mitigate some of that flex, and I did prefer it over the air fork. The stock Marzocchi CR rear shock is really good. The stock volume reducer spec is 0.5, which for me was really close to the sweet spot. If I wanted to really push the limits on this bike, I'd likely go up to a 0.7. Now, backing up a little bit, the Ripmo AF has some non-obvious features that I really appreciate. The water bottle cage compatibility allows me to run a full-size water bottle. While Ibis designs the bikes around an Arundel carbon fiber side load cage, Jensen USA sells a lower cost foundation cage that works quite nicely. The Arundel cage will fit a bigger bottle, but the foundation cage will fit better into your wallet. Next, there's a simple bag available that allows for in-frame storage. I'll link to both the bottle cage and the pork chop bag down in the description below. Negating my biggest pet peeve with the bikes, the Ripmo AF has plenty of insertion to use a full-length dropper. I'm able to fit a full 200mm drop post, and I appreciate that every time I try to ride fast. One thing I repeatedly complain about with both the aluminum and carbon Ripmos is the low bottom bracket height. It's absolutely not a deal breaker, and for casual riding, I get along with it just fine. When I'm trying to hustle, or I get tired, or I'm filming doing weird stuff in tight places, I do smash my pedals a ton. These Deity Death Trap pedals were super comfy and get rave reviews. Unfortunately, I hit them enough times on the AF that they actually bent to the point that I don't feel safe riding them anymore.
We just found this silly little climbing trail. There's like a fun poppy section you can sprint into and do a few things. And I was like, all right, I'll have some fun through here, get jamming. And I jammed a little too hard and I misstruck a chord. The pedal hit a tree root twice. First time it bent, sad. Second time, it bent even further. So now I gotta try to warranty some pedals. Is that really a warranty? I don't know.
It looks like the outside of the pedal droops to the ground.
On my prior AF builds, I've loved the big WTB 2.6 tires as they provide a few benefits for this bike. First up, they provide a little bit more clearance because they're a little bit taller. Second, the extra volume means the bike tracks better in the loose, rocky, dry summer conditions. And finally, the lower tire pressure means the bike feels just a little bit more plush. I use the Tough Casing tires and I run about 20 PSI front and rear. My next setup will certainly be some 2.6 tires again, maybe those new Continentals if they ever arrive from the back orders. I hesitate sharing my two small complaints as I really do feel the pros on the Ripmo AF far outweigh the cons. Speaking of weight, yes, the Ripmo AF weighs more than the carbon bike, but that's okay. Go ride an e-bike and you'll quickly notice that when you're back on the AF, it's still 15 pounds lighter than anything with a motor. We all adapt to weight fairly quickly. Between the overall trail feel, just enough travel, a good pedaling feel, and modern aggressive geometry, the Ripmo AF is the bike that all other bike designers have in mind as they lay out a goal of a value-oriented trail bike. Kudos to Ibis, this is the bike that will fully indoctrinate so many of you into the sport. The Ripmo AF rides great. I really appreciate that it corners so intuitively, flowing through turns like a politician through promises. Once you've ridden a few other types of bikes, you'll appreciate that the suspension has a wonderfully neutral feel, where it can be popped off jumps and small obstacles quite easily, but it also allows for some rock plowing when you feel that need to fully imitate a howitzer. A lot of you asked me about the Ripmo AF versus the specialized Stumpjumper EVO. Both are great bikes, and to be clear, I do prefer the Ripmo, but there are places where Stumpjumper would actually be better. The Ripmo AF has a cool trick that the horse-linked bikes can't touch. The DW Link design clears square-edged hits much more efficiently, meaning you'll notice the bike doesn't get hung up and slow down nearly as much when you end up mashing through those rocks. The Ripmo also pedals a bit better, particularly so if you're pedaling through any kind of an obstacle. If I had to pick, I'd certainly ditch the stable and stick with the dank avocado Ripmo for my preferred diet of trail riding. However, if I mostly rode higher speed trails or flow trails or bike parks, the Stumpjumper EVO can be set up longer and slacker than the Ripmo. Coupled with the improved stiffness, this provides a better bike park rig. So if you ride a lot of bike park, consider the Stumpjumper. But for trail riding, I do prefer the Ripmo.
The schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
Huckleberries.
Every bike is built to excel at various different things, and I feel the design of the AF lends itself well to be an incredible all-arounder. Big thanks for joining me. This was a lot of fun to put together, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that red subscribe button just below. Peace and wheelies, everyone.